And a good 36 hours and counting morning, everybody. You got the Birds, guys. Mac here on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, it's getting close. I see someone wrote down Christmas Eve for football on our streamer comments. That's kind of where we're at. The waiting is almost over. The draft is almost here, and it still can't get here soon enough for me.
No. Oh, we are at that portion. Yeah. Happy draft eve, Jody. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for it to start. I've been silly seasoned out for a few days. How about you? Information overload.
Few weeks, as a matter of fact, and that's what it is. It's silly season, and here's why it gets a little bit annoying if you're as diehard a fan as John and I are, as you guys are, who are streaming in. Nothing's happened. Nothing that would have an immediate effect on the Philadelphia Eagles. We did have a big trade in the league. Aaron Rodgers going from the Packers to the Jets. I really don't think that has any effect. Certainly, it'll have effect on the draft itself because there are picks that were exchanged, but I don't think it has an immediate effect on the Eagles because the Packers and Eagles are going to pick. The Packers and Jets are going to pick between the Eagles' two picks, and even moving up the Packers pick only gets the 13 Eagles or a 10. Do you think the Eagles or the Packers are potentially thinking about moving up into the top 10? They got that second round pick from the Jets. If there's someone they're targeting, certainly they now have the ammunition to go get it. Do you think the one move that's been made in the National Football League over the last couple of days has any effect on the Eagles?
I don't think so. From the Eagles' perspective, I think they're in wait and see mode about how the board is going to fall when it comes to number 10 and potentially moving down. I think it's more likely they move up, to be honest, than down to get Jalen Carter if he gets by Seattle. I think they start thinking about it and, trying to seize the moment, so to speak. And then, as I said, a lot of flying around about quarterbacks. We left the show mentioning Will Levis. What's going to happen? 2 might go in the top 9, 4 might go in the top 9. Obviously, if it's the latter, it's better for the Eagles. Then I think they're probably not going to move out. If certain players are gone and they can't get up to get Carter, I think they start thinking about moving down. But again, we always talk about it. Everyone thinks, oh, let's just flip the switch. We're going to move down now. You got to find somebody that wants to move up, and you got to find all these. So just because you want to do something doesn't mean you can get it accomplished. So you always have to. Marcus Smith, probably the greatest example of that. The Eagles had they had like 5 players on the board. They all went bang, 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 and they couldn't get out, and they ended up taking Marcus Smith, and it didn't work out. So just and I think, a lot of people just assume, oh, he'll trade out. He'll do this. He'll do that. Well, he might want to, Howie, but you always have to have that other dance partner. So, but he's got all, what Howie's really good at, I always say, contingencies, number one. I think that separates him from most general managers in this league. And then when it comes to the draft, especially the first round, he's got all this mapped out. He's already got, people, are you interested? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? This is what he does. It's not like you're on the clock and saying, oh, call so-and-so. We have no idea. That's like Kevin Costner draft day stuff. That's sort of like Nick Sirianni and his game planning when we talk about, well, what's it matter, the play caller, because everything's set up and structured so much. And, but then there's the feel for the moment, and that's where Howie comes in as well. But
the moment is all important, as a matter of fact, if you're talking play calling. And I believe you when you say that Howie's got contingencies already in place. I think you and I disagree on this a little bit. This should be fun. With that 10th pick in the draft, as of right now, the way the Eagles are scheduled to pick, they've got the 10th and the 30th in the first round. If there's 100% to be broken up, because there's always 100% anything you ask to be broken up.
Yeah.
There are three potential outcomes for the Eagles in round number one. They can either trade up, stay at 10 and make the pick, or trade back. If you were to break up those three possibilities, what kind of percentage over 100% would you give each as a possibility?
I'm going to say 40% trade up. And the only reason I don't go higher, if that number would spike if Jalen Carter gets by Seattle. I have a hard time right now thinking he's going to get by Seattle. Otherwise, that number would be way up. I put that at about 70 because I think that's the player they want. But for the start of the process, I'd say 40 trade up, probably 30 and 30, and stay put, and 30 trade down. If Carter's gone, then as I mentioned, how many quarterbacks are going? I think that will have a big impact. If there's two, they're probably going to stay put and take a player. If there's four, if there's four, they're probably going to stay put and take a player. So the opposite. I'm already getting screwed up. If only two go and all of a sudden some of the positional players start popping off the board, I think it's more likely they'll try to get out and try to trade down. Not a lot, a targeted trade down, because I think they have a core group of players. Probably the one the fans don't want the most is Lucas Van Ness. I don't think they want to take him at 10, but, if they go down to 14, 15, somewhere in that range, something like that. But I think, when Howie said unique, and everybody jumped on that. Oh, he's taking Bijan. I think he was talking about Jalen Carter. And we'll see. We got to be here tomorrow and after the draft. And as I said to Xander before the show, and I've said to you numerous times, Jody, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they take Bijan Robinson simply because I don't want to talk about them taking a running back in the first round of the draft any longer.
Here's my take on it, and it's slightly different from yours. I know how he, likes to move. All you have to do is check the records, and you know how he likes to move. Last year he had started the first round with 3 picks. He made exactly none of them in the position that they were in. Traded up for David, traded up for Davis, traded the pick to New Orleans to get this year's pick, and traded for A.J. Brown. So he took exactly 0 where they were supposed to go. I would make staying at 10 the favorite because, as you and I continue to talk about, I love when people call, we'll trade down to number 18. Not only do they know where he's trading down to, they know exactly what number they're trading down to. Well, who's got the pick at 18? Well, I don't know, but I'm going to slot him in at 18 because that's where it makes the most sense. I love the amateur general manager. No, I think there's a really good chance, better chance that they stay put at 10 and they move this year, which I know is against Howie's regular MO. And the one that I'm having a tough time grasping is moving up. I understand that Jalen Carter is a guy that they like. They had in for a meeting. They're not going to come out and tell us, but the indications are that they're willing to take the chances that come with Jalen Carter. But I'm with you. I think the Eagles are not the only team that fall into this category. I think that he's not going to get past 5, and he's going to be a Seattle Seahawks. So I don't see them trading up because I don't think Jalen Carter is going to be available. I don't think they're going to be able to get high enough to get him. So I'm going to put that at just 10%. 50% they stay put where they are. I think where Eagle fans will at least have some fun on draft night, and it'll be frustrating at first, I think they're going to trade down. If they're going to move, I would say much more down than up, which you know what that's going to do two nights from now, Johnny Mac. It will keep the Bijan hope alive. If they trade down from 10 and Bijan's still on the board, which I think he will be at 10, wherever the Eagles happen to trade down to, and I'm not going to give you an exact number because I sure
give
as
me
hell don't know what number it is.
18, Jody, 18.
18, yeah, exactly. I'm not going to make that same obnoxious mistake, but it will keep the Bijan hope alive for a little bit. So I say 10-50, which I know flies in the face of Howie's usual MO, and 40% that they trade down because, as you laid it out, you're leaving open the possibility that Jalen Carter could fall to a point where the Eagles think they can go get him. And here's the other reason why I don't think the Eagles are going to trade up. They don't have the draft capital this year to do so. When you're without a 4th, 5th, and a 6th round pick, you kind of need that 2nd and 3rd round pick, which you would have to use to be able to move up in the 1st round. Now, they've got a couple of extra picks next year, which, again, if you're talking about dealing next year's pick, anytime you move off a year, you're dropping down the value of that pick because the other team's got to wait 12 months to use it. And a whole bunch of the Eagles draft next year is based on compensatory pick for free agents they lost this year. Well, they don't have those picks yet. We believe they're going to get those picks, but since we don't even know where those picks are because the NFL doesn't determine them for another year, you can't exactly trade them. Well, we'll trade you a compensatory pick. Well, where is that pick? Well, we don't know. Well, then we don't want that pick. Thank you very much. Sorry, Howie Roseman. We're not making that deal. So they've got picks they can trade next year. They've got an extra pick from New Orleans, one more for the deal they made last year. That's a 2nd round pick. At least that's tangible. At least you know where that's going to fall. I think that the Eagles are a little shorthanded with bullets to move up in this year's draft, so that's why I think they're not doing it.
Well, you can't trade compensatory future compensatory picks.
Right. You know you're going to get them,
yeah.
so you can trade. You're going to get them. Let's say the Eagles think they're going to get a 4th round compensatory pick. Well, then they can trade their own pick.
Yes.
Their own 4th round pick next year because they believe they're going to get a compensatory pick, but they can't trade the compensatory.
They do know they're going to get it. I mean, the formula is, it's not difficult for them to figure out. So they do know they're going to get 4 compensatory picks. So they can work it, as you just said. If you want to send a future, you're getting, there might be a little bit of caution about, is it going to be a 3rd? Is it going to be a 4th? Is it going to be a 4th? Is it going to be a 5th? But you have that extra draft capital. They know that's coming. That's part of their plan. And that's why they let so many guys walk. Not the only reason, but they knew they were going to get compensatory picks back when they let people walk. And that's one of the reasons they didn't sign guys to big money contracts, because they didn't want to cancel out potential compensatory picks. So that's why you have a bunch of lottery tickets. So all of that comes into the planning as a whole. I think a lot of people say, the Eagles need more picks. And for the most part, yeah, I agree with that. But Howie, every once in a while, Howie tells the truth. I think he told the truth 2 times in his press conference. And when he said, I'm not going to tell you guys anything, he doesn't tell us anything about individual players. He does occasionally let us in on, sort of a organizational philosophy or theme or whatever you want to call it. And he talked about, one of them was, he talked about age of the prospects in the COVID world. And there's a lot of older prospects because you had the extra year, and he mentioned you can't necessarily grade them the same way you can a 21-year-old kid, especially when it comes to physical traits. And I think that was a signal about Lucas Van Ness, to be honest, because he's so young and he's already so powerful. And they're like, and he put a number on it. He put, those guys are going to get 20% stronger when they get into an NFL, strength and conditioning program. So that was one.
You think that was Van Ness targeted, huh?
No, I don't think that, but it fits Van Ness. Not only Van Ness, he's talking about all younger prospects, and the fact that you can't, if you're 24, 25, the old sort of grown man, you see these NFL, one thing you always say about offensive, defensive linemen, they got to get in the weight room. They got to get NFL strength. So if you're already ahead of the game, as Van Ness is, and you put 20% on top of that, well, you start going, oof, in a couple years, that can turn into something. But I digress. Then the other part, which is kind of what we were talking about, and more picks. Everybody's focused on more picks because they don't have a fourth, a fifth, a sixth. He said impact players. Impact players are more important. And you don't have to look far. Last year they had 5 picks. If you go back to in the wake of Carson Wentz, they had back-to-back years, 2018 and 2019, of 5 picks. 2018 draft, by the way, one of their best ever, with Goddard, Maddox, Sweat, and Mailata. Impact more important than numbers, and he mentioned that. And I've also heard it's not just about Carter. I've also heard the visit went well, and the Eagles like him. We know the Eagles like him, but remember,
right, but that's been said by a couple other teams that draft before the Eagles.
Well, you can't control other people. That's the problem. Right. But Seattle's one team. So I'm with you. I think Seattle's going to take him. But if we're wrong, then all of a sudden, bang, they're trying to get up. If Seattle goes in a different direction for whatever reason, maybe they want to trade out. Maybe somebody wants to go up and they don't want to take the quarterback at that point, but they want to take a quarterback later. Maybe they trade out. All I'm saying is that's a flimsy linchpin. If they decide to go in a different direction, all of a sudden, I think the Eagles perk up and say, all right, we got to go ahead of Chicago. We got to get up, and let's try to do it. Not saying you can do it, saying it's going to be, one of the things that drives me crazy. You saw a report. I don't know if you saw it, but some people saw it. Oh, the Eagles are calling about trading up. Well, yeah, they call everybody about everything. They're also calling people about trading down. That's what I said. The foundation, the homework, he's got all these contingencies mapped out. But I think those two themes, and the bigger one is impact. He doesn't give a flying hoot about a 5th round pick if he can get Jalen Carter. I mean, that's and by the way, he's right.
Yeah. Johnny, a 5th round pick is going to get you up from 10 to.
No, I'm just talking about. I'm talking about the numbers. He's probably going to have to give up 30, to be honest, and he doesn't care. That's what. But the larger point is, the numbers don't matter if you can get impactful players. They think he's an impactful player, so I'm not as concerned with the numbers as other people are. Now, remember, if none of this stuff happened, Jody, this guy's probably going number 1 overall. So, if you're the Eagles and you have a unique opportunity to get a guy who might be the best player overall in the draft, that's kind of an Eagles move. He
might be the best player in the draft, but he had and has no chance of going number 1. Carolina moved up to take a quarterback. They're going to take a quarterback, so he has no chance to be number 1. Could he be number 2? Yeah, that's not impossible. That Houston decides we're going to wait till 12 to take a quarterback, and then if he goes number 2, the Eagles sure as hell aren't getting up to number 2. That's why I think there is
But what I was talking about, not now, when the process started, Jody, before his troubles, before Chicago traded out, he was pretty much the consensus number 1 pick, and now he's not. And, if they have an opportunity, I think they're going to try to seize that opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever the consensus number 1 pick. He might be the number 1 graded player, but he was never going to be the number 1 pick because there are quarterbacks that are worthy of being the number 1 pick, and quarterbacks always move up. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's the way the NFL works.
I'm saying if Chicago didn't move out, Chicago wasn't looking for a quarterback. Now, they were smart to trade out. I don't know. They probably went down a little bit too much. They probably did it a little bit too quickly, but they had made their case. They said, we're going to stick with Justin Fields. If they didn't trade out, they were taking the best defensive player. If they were taking the best defensive player, people can argue for Will Anderson. if there were no issues, legal issues, and this is a perfect world, they would have took Jalen Carter. Most people are on that page. That's all I'm saying.
And I'm saying if the Bears are still thinking in those directions, they've got a better chance to trade up and get Jalen Carter than the Eagles do this year. So that's why I'm telling you, I'm trying to like brace Eagle fans for the fact that they're not getting Jalen Carter. If they do, I'll come on here and eat crow on Friday. But I'm telling you right now, Jalen Carter is not going to be an Eagle. He's going to be going higher in the draft than the Eagles are going to be capable of going up and getting. A lot of draft talk here on Birds 365 with Mac and Mac. We're going to continue it next. Russell Brown from draft analyst for Fantasy Pros is going to jump in with us next here on Birds 365.